Hello everyone, have a nice day. Today we'll explore a gentle story about a cold winter evening in a small forest house where a man comes home soaked from the rain, struggles to wrap tet cakes after many years, and ends up warming someone's heart in the sweetest, most unexpected way. Through clumsy hands, shared laughter, and quiet acts of care, we'll see how love can grow from the smallest moments. If you find it interesting, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next videos. Don's fingers refuse to listen to him. The dong leaves slip, the string twists the wrong way, and the mound of sticky rice he's just scooped onto the center slowly tilts, then slides off the edge like a tiny avalanche. "Ah, no, no, no," he mutters under his breath. Rice scatters all over the mat. Across from him, Tu Hoa bites her lip, trying to hold it in. The oil lamp flickers between them, turning the mess in front of Don into a small, tragic disaster. His shoulders tense, jaw clenched in stubborn concentration. He crosses the leaves again, scoops more rice, and tries to roll. The whole bundle collapses. That's when she bursts out laughing. It's not a mean laugh. It's bright and round, the kind that fills the little stilt house and pushes the cold air back out through the bamboo walls. "You're hopeless," she manages between laughs, hand covering her mouth. "Who taught you to rap like that?" "I'm rusty," Don protests, ears flushing. "It's been years, and these leaves are slippery, and this mat is crooked, and your hands," she teases. "My hands are perfect," he says, lifting them up defensively. There's a grain of rice stuck to his knuckle. She scoots closer without thinking, the hem of her sweater brushing his knee. The distance between them shrinks to a breath. Don forgets what he was about to say. Smoke from the outside fire clings to the air, mixed with the faint, comforting smell of pork, pepper, and fish sauce. "Come here," she says softly. "Give me your hands." He hesitates, then obeys. Her fingers curl around his, smaller but sure. She places his palms at the right angle on the leaves. "Look," she guides, voice low. "This leaf goes this way. This one covers here. Hold it tight. Not too loose, not too hard, like you're carrying a bowl of soup. Spill it and you're dead." He huffs. "Is this how you motivate people?" "It works," she replies, eyes dancing. He tries again, following the rhythm of her words, syncing his movements with hers. She adjusts his grip, nudges his thumb, tucks a rebellious corner of the leaf under his palm. The oil lamp casts an amber halo around them. Their heads almost touch as they lean forward over the half-wrapped cake. His heart stumbles in his chest. It's not the heat from the nearby stove making his cheeks warm. "Now roll," she whispers. Together they push the filling in, inch by inch. Rice and mung beans and pork belly slowly surrender to the shape of the leaves. The bundle tightens. For a moment it looks like it might hold. Don's breath catches. Then one side pops out and the filling bulges. Tu Hoa presses her lips together, shoulders already shaking. A small giggle escapes. "Don't say it," Don warns. "You rap so badly," she says anyway, exploding into another fit of laughter. This time he laughs too. The sound is rougher, lower, but it mixes perfectly with hers. For a few seconds, the rain outside, the chill seeping through the floor, the worries about tomorrow, all of it fades behind the ridiculous crooked bond teeth sitting between them. He steals a glance at her. Her eyes are shining behind the stray strands of hair that have escaped her bun. There's flour on her wrist and a faint red mark near her thumb where the string rubbed too hard. She looks tired, a little worn from the long day, but in that golden light, with laughter still trembling at the corner of her lips, she also looks soft. He realizes with a jolt that all this clumsiness, all this trying, is not just about a cake. Earlier that afternoon, the house had been much colder. Rain had been coming down in sheets when Don pushed the door open with his shoulder, raincoat soaked through, arms full of pork belly, spices, and a bundle of tying strings. Water dripped from his lashes, slid down his neck, and disappeared into the damp collar of his shirt. Inside, under the muted glow of the oil lamp, Tu Hoa was crouched over a basin, sleeves rolled up, rinsing dong leaves alone. He'd frozen in the doorway. "You!" he blurted, half scolding, half relieved. "Why didn't you wait for me to pick the leaves together?" She looked up at him, a little startled, then smiled with that small, familiar curve of her lips. "I had my hat," she said simply. "What are you worried about?" "The rain," he answered, dropping the bundle of pork on the table with a thud. "The cold, the mud, the fact that this slope is slippery and you are—" "Careful," she cut in, raising an eyebrow. "I am what?" He swallowed the rest of the sentence. "Fragile, precious, someone I can't afford to see fall." "You," he said instead, shrugging off his raincoat, "are stubborn." She only laughed and shifted aside to make room for him at the basin. The water in the tub had long gone cold. He plunged his hands in anyway. Leaves brushed against his fingers, slick and smooth. Their hands bumped once, twice, then simply stayed close, working in an easy, quiet rhythm, washing, stacking, washing again. Outside, the rain softened from a roar to a gentle patter on the thatched roof. At one point, Don lifted the slab of pork belly up with a grin. "Look," he'd said, proud, "I picked the fattiest pieces. The cake will be rich, unforgettable." She nodded approvingly, fingertips brushing the back of his hand as she took the meat to slice. "Thank you," she'd murmured. No big speech, just that. But the way she said it had settled somewhere deep inside his chest and refused to leave. Now, hours later, the basin is empty, the leaves are clean and stacked, and they're sitting cross-legged on the woven mat, surrounded by rice and beans and meat and string. The house is still the same small, simple shelter in the middle of the forest, but something between them has shifted. "Again," Tu Hoa says now, gently squeezing his fingers. "We'll stay here until you wrap one that doesn't fall apart." "You're merciless," Don groans. "You're the one who wanted a long bantet," she reminds him. "Besides," her voice softens, "it's our first time doing this here, in this house. Don't you want to remember it?" He looks at her, really looks. The lamplight, the rain-muted night pressing against the bamboo walls, the half-tied bundle of rice in front of them. Her hand is still holding him. "Yes," he says quietly, "I want to remember." He straightens his back, tightens his grip on the leaves, and tries again, clumsy, determined, and unaware that with every failed roll, every shared laugh, He is slowly, unexpectedly melting something guarded inside Tu Hoa's heart. Dawn's last roll finally holds together. The long cake is still a bit fat in the middle, but the leaves hug the filling instead of bursting open. "There," Tu Hoa says. "Now it actually looks like a bon tet." He watches her more than the cake. "You're not just being kind?" "If it explodes in the pot, I'll laugh first," she replies. "Then I'll tell you it was yours." They both laugh, tension easing. On the tray, neat cakes and crooked ones lie side by side hers, his, and the ones they wrapped with their fingers constantly bumping. Outside, the rain has thinned into a soft mist. Night presses gently against the bamboo walls. "We should boil them," she says, "or we'll be eating at sunrise." "I'll carry the pot," Dawn answers. They haul water, fill the big iron pot, and stack the cakes inside. Under the lean-to, he builds a fire until flames lick the metal and steam rises, smelling of leaves and pork. "Go inside," he tells her. "The ground's damp. Your nose will hurt again." "And you?" she asks. "I'll watch the fire. Someone has to guard my first batch." He shrugs. She goes back in to wash bowls and wipe the table, but her eyes keep drifting to the orange glow outside. Wood crackles, water bubbles, and the forest slowly swallows the last of the day. When she steps out again, the spot by the stove is empty. "Dawn," she calls. "Over here," his voice answers, a little short of breath. She follows the sound around the side of the house and stops. In the lantern's small circle, he's bent over the ground, shovel rising and falling. A shallow pit yawns at his feet, the earth dark and wet. Mud climbs his boots and pants. "What are you doing? It's freezing," she blurts. "Deepening the toilet pit," he says without stopping. "If the rain gets worse and the old one will flood, I don't want you slipping there at night." "It can wait until morning," she protests, "or next week. We just started boiling the cakes." He digs again. "If I don't do it now, I'll lie awake thinking about it. Then you'll complain I'm restless." She stares at him for a heartbeat, throat tight, then turns and walks back inside without a word. When she returns, she's carrying a bowl of warm water and a small towel. She sets the bowl on a rock, steps close, and closes her fingers around his wrist. "Stop," she says softly, "just for a minute." He straightens slowly. His breath comes out in white puffs. Sweat and mist cling together on his forehead. The lantern throws tired shadows under his eyes. She lifts the towel and gently wipes his brow, then the streak of dried mud along his cheek. Her touch is light, but his shoulders finally loosen. "You overdo everything," she murmurs. "If you get sick, who will argue with me about how much fat we should put in the filling?" He lets out a quiet laugh. "I'm fine. I'm not cold. I'm overheating." His fogging breath makes a liar of him. He glances down at her hands, red from the cold, a little rough from work, still holding the towel against his temple. "What about you?" he asks. "Are you cold? Is your nose hurting again?" She blinks. "Why do you care about that so much?" "Because you were in the rain," he says simply. "You always rub your nose when it aches. I noticed." Something in her chest loosens at those two small words. "I notice." "It's nothing," she mutters. "Just a small pain." You should be by the stove, he says softly. I'll finish here, check the fire, watch the pot. You don't have to stand out. And you, she cuts in. You think I can sit by the fire while you're out here digging in the dark? Silence settles. Behind them, the pot sends up a steady plume of steam. Around them, the forest breathes one dog bark, one distant bird calls, then goes still again. Tu Hoa lowers the towel. Her hands tremble slightly now, but her voice stays steady. You do all this, she says, for a house that still leaks, for a slope that keeps sliding, for a toilet no one will ever praise you for. You go to the market soaked, come home shivering, dig until your hands shake, and you still worry about my stupid nose. Don opens his mouth, then closes it again. No answer feels big enough. So he stands there, muddy and silent. She doesn't wait for words. She steps forward and wraps her arms around him, ignoring the dirt on his jacket and the shovel handle trapped between them. Her cheek finds his chest. His heart thumps hard under her ear. He freezes for a second, stunned, then lets the shovel fall. One arm slowly comes up to hold her, careful, as if he's afraid she might break. Lantern light wavers. Steam drifts past them in pale ribbons. This is the moment her heart melts. Not when he joked over the rice, not when he blushed under the oil lamp. Here, in the cold and mud, with his clothes damp and his muscles shaking, he still puts her small aches above his own. Come, she whispers at last, not pulling away. If we stay here any longer, the cakes will think we forgot them. He laughs softly, the sound vibrating against her cheek. They walk back to the stove together. Later, when the cakes are done, Don carries the heavy pot inside. Steam bursts out, filling the room with the smell of leaves and pork. Tu Hoa peels back the green layers. The first cake is crooked, but when he slices it, the golden filling glows in the lamplight. He offers her the biggest piece. Well, he asks. She tastes it. The flavor is warm and imperfect and entirely theirs. It's perfect, she says, and this time her heart answers before her lips do.
Và một buổi tối lạnh lẽo sâu trong rừng, Jun trở về nhà ứ sũng như quyết tâm làm bánh tét cùng Tử Hoa. Họ cùng nhau rửa lá dong, chuẩn bị thịt lợn mỡ và ngồi dưới ánh đèn dầu để gói những chiếc bánh dài. John buồn cười vì không quen là đổ gạo la lỏng và hỉ dạ trở lên cong vênh, nhưng sự vụ về của anh đã lấp đầy ngôi nhà nhỏ bằng tiếng cười. Trong khi bánh sôi, anh lặng lẽ ra ngoài để đào sâu hô xí trong giá lạnh, muốn làm cho nơi ở của họ an toàn hơn. Tử Hoa mang nước ấm cho anh, lau mồ hôi và nhận ra anh vẫn lo lắng cho cơn đau xoang của cô hơn là sự kiệt sức của chính mình. Trong góc lội đó, trái tim cô cũng mềm lòng và cô ôm anh, sau đó chia sẻ chiếc bánh tét trơn hảo nhưng ngon lành của họ. Biết đống lửa, cả hai cũng cảm thấy một cảm giác ấm áp và ngôi nhà bắt đầu hình thành.